in the scriptures.
Okay.
Found out something last night.
What's that?
Found out how come Luther cried when him and Janelle got themselves sold off to different places.
How come you think?
Wasn't strong enough. On account he didn't want to be by himself no more.
Think a man being by himself make him strong?
I do.
Tell you what I think.
What?
Think you the biggest fool ever saw on two legs.
Why? On account I want to be strong?
On account of there ain't nothing in this world make a white man so happy than seeing a nigga all by himself. Ain't no bigger battle he can win than keeping niggas apart. Strong and stubborn ain't nowhere near the same. Nowhere near. You're just giving the white folks the biggest victory up.
Christian man.
Why don't we go?
I know that. Won't never eat big meat. I know. And I expect sometimes I ain't easy to be with. I know you ain't.
Through this cotton field, I see you. They may take our tongue, but I still hear you, Why don't we go?
And the children come out and be supposed to be supposed to be brown. I can touch you, so you feel better. But we can't be with each other now like we want.
Wait, man, don't even leave us. Don't do it. Okay, I want you now. I need you.
We sweat, we bleed. Everything we touch, it grows. Let's touch each other in our souls.
As long as we keep the sun on this side in the morning, then we know we're heading north. That way freedom means yes, Mom. We can't stay in this place much longer.
How far away?
Don't know, but it don't matter. If north where it is, then we just keep going till we reach north. Now, please, Martha, come with me. Let's go now.
What you gonna do once you get to freedom?
Find a job. I'll make money.
What you know how to do? They ain't got no tobacco. They ain't got no cotton. They ain't got nothing up north for a nigga to pick.
We're made for together, crafted by the ancient ones. Our bonds been severed. Let's seek love. Let's see.
Come with me now, Franklin. Come. Maybe we can get away from this place clean together. Maybe all the way back to our home.
You're talking too crazy.
Oh, we can make it, Franklin.
I told you, my name is Maggie.
Now, you know, ain't no Tupac can make it through the woods like Mandinka. You know it's the
Hold me,
truth.
man.
We stay away from people, away from the main roads, away from houses. We can make it. We can make it to the north and be free. Maybe then we can find some more runaways, Franklin. Come on, Franklin.
No, I'm here, and I'm gonna stay here.
You will stay a slave?
I'm gonna stay alive. I'm gonna stay warm instead of cold. I'm gonna stay fed instead of starved. I'm gonna stay. Do what they say long as I can suck breath. A dead nigga ain't helped nobody. Least of all a dead nigga.
Motherfucker, you can't mean what you're saying.
Hush! That's what. Just get on out of here and leave me be. It's already daylight. And just get on out of here and leave me be.
Well, let me talk to you now. Let me talk with you, woman.
No! I don't even know about nothing. And this is where I am. And this is where I will stay.
Mi amor, porque no nos vamos.
Greetings, everyone. Good dawning to everyone. Let me fix some of this. See what we got going on. Welcome, Shabbat Shalom. Welcome to our Sabbath Insight, and of course, I am Chief Yu and you are on the Anu Life Global Ministries channel. I'm just going to get the chat in front of me. I know usually I don't do much answering and things in the chat, and this Sabbath will be no different. But, I just like to keep my eyes on things, make sure everything is moving as it should. So we have been continuing our talks around the science of family, the divinity of family, and, again, going from before we even begin with family, but going from, the development of the individual as it relates to their gender differences, their nature, their nurturing, and how they may kind of move and process through the world. We've covered some of that. We've covered the vetting process for men and women. We've covered communication styles between men and women. And now we're going to get into courting, right? And I know all of this, and thank you for the ones. I see them. Toda Rabbah. I see them. Give thanks for those ones. Let me turn this down just in case. And, I know that the original call or the original conversation that we had around just this entire subject was related to family and polygyny. And again, I'm going to reiterate for those of you coming in sort of new, there are so many things that you have to look at first before you start looking at the expansiveness of a blended family or of an expanded family by way of plurality, right? And for me, myself is Chief Yuya. I am the Chief Jegna of the Anu Life Global Ministries, and which is a part of the Anu Nation, which is a service-based community rooted in ancient principles, deep wisdom, and most importantly, service to Alikes, or Alike is someone who, or a person or a group of people who are similar to how we are, in particular, those who may have been marginalized, those who may have been taken advantage of, those who may be underserved, and more critically, those who we might classify as mentally dead, or as some would say, the dry bones in need of revival. So this whole process, everything that we've been talking about in regards to family, in regards to personal development, and communal organization and communal creation and establishment, it's all an effort to redeem what has been lost, what has been stolen, what has been forgotten, what has been neglected in terms of our own patterns, our own ways, our own mores, our own systems that have been given to us by our forebears that were very effective and very, very successful until we started to stray from our original ways and stray from our original teachings and stray from our original guidance. So when we are looking at putting together family or reestablishing family, which was the first institution that was attacked when we confronted invaders who came to our land, it wasn't religion and things like that. It was the family, because that was where the basis of power was held. Just like within land, you hold the basis of wealth. So it's a methodical process of teaching it. I know it might be like, well, can't you just do a show on polygyny and get it over with? And we have a very sad statistic that we often look at or recite when we look at the divorce rates in the Western Hemisphere. In monogamous couplings, let's say hetero monogamous couplings, and sometimes people will cite polygyny and say, well, those situations don't work out and people are jealous, and look in the Bible, or I watch Nollywood movies, and in Nollywood movies is always jealousy and things like that. And of course, those are very foolish responses, and it disregards the fact that monogamy isn't working. And I bet you I can cite far more monogamous failings than you will cite polygynous failings, especially because a lot of times when you're looking at polygynous couples, it's oftentimes rooted in some sort of religious devotion. It's not just rooted in romance. And not to say that those don't exist as well, but oftentimes there's a religious commitment that allows the entire household to have a unified sort of objective or a unified way of thinking. So with that being said, like I said, we're just breaking it down methodically, step by step. And I do understand that some of this subject matter may feel a little rough to listen to, especially when we're covering things that are missing. And I want you to understand that I'm not necessarily attempting to target anyone or to make anyone feel bad or to make anyone feel less than if I say these are the levels of development that are necessary in order to have a successful relationship. And you may say, well, I'm not developed at that level, or I haven't matured at that level. I mean, I also did a segment on maturity magic. And I know that it got a lot of views only because the word magic was in it. But if you're really listening to it, it's about coming to a place of wholeness and finally growing up, recognizing that the guidance that's given by myself, the guidance that's given by ancestors and elders of these same communities is guidance given to adults. So if you haven't decided to become an adult yet and to trespass that sacred rite of passage into adulthood, into full-blown maturity, none of this is going to make sense to you. It's like when something tough is happening in someone's life and you quote scripture to them and they're just like, they're still feeling what they're feeling because it doesn't really hit them because they haven't opened themselves up to your creator, or you just may have different yas, you may have different L's. So sometimes that's the case too. All right. So I'm going to share a bit of the courting process that's in the Anu way. And for those of you who do not have the Anu way, you can always go into Anu Life Global Ministries. It's free. Anu Life Global Ministries. You could download a copy. If you want to give an offering, you have an option to do that when you download the text. It's a text as well as an audiobook. But if you just want it for free, you could do that too. If you download it for free and then you find out later, man, I should have gave an offering, you can always go back to the give page and you can offer something for the work that was put in it. Not even the work that was put in it. You could offer something for what you received from it. All right. But either way, you can get it. Right. So I'm going to share some of what is in the Anu way in the courting section, not all of it because it's pretty expansive. And I'm going to share some scriptures in terms of the necessity of courting. And I know for a lot of you who are maybe coming from a biblical perspective, you may kind of say like, well, there's no concept of courting in the Bible. And you're right. The courting is not in there. Right. So everything is not in the Bible. Everything is not in there. There's some great and amazing spiritual history and intelligence and guidance and wisdom that are held in those pages for people who know how to read it and people who know how to read and process information from a logical perspective and a rational perspective, and they don't let their emotions or their lazy scholarship get in the way. If you're one of those sort of people, you can glean some amazing information. If you're not, then you'll make excuses as to why you don't want to read it. And I know all of the excuses. I promise you, I do know. And it's not the white man's book, and King James did not write the Bible. All right. So moving right along, I'm going to start with a scripture, which is in Ecclesiastes. Ecclesiastes, or Ecclesiasticus rather, 6:7. Ecclesiasticus 6:7. If thou wouldst get a friend, prove him first and be not hasty to credit him. All right. That's our start of our courting process. Now you might say, well, that would apply to anything. It would apply to if you would get a friend, but obviously that person that you choose to mate and that you choose to form family with, there has to be some level of friendship there, and not necessarily in a sense where you're friend zoning a person. I make it very clear with the women that I'm with, we are not friends. I'm your man. You're my woman. We're not friends. So I'm going to say things to you that your friends may not have the heart to say. And a woman may look at me as a friend, because oftentimes a woman's love towards a man is very conditional. It's just how it is. But for me, this is an unconditional stewardship and shepherding that I have in that sense. But as Ecclesiasticus says, if thou wouldst get a friend, if you're going to have a friend, prove that friend first. Remember, I talked about trying and proving in the vetting process. Prove that friend first, and be not hasty to credit him or her. So don't be so quick to, oh, mama, I met a new man and he worked 13 jobs and I love he, you know what I mean? Like, you so quick to just want to give this person credit that's undue, without really proving them and figuring out who this person is. So this is where courtship comes in, right? This is somebody I want to be with, and maybe I've had a dream about them, I thought about whatever it is, but it's someone I want to be with. And I'm going to share with you some of my own testimony in regards to this. The first time I courted someone on the continent, not in America, but on the continent in West Africa, it was a much different sort of experience than what I was expecting, because the whole process was imbued with, I would say, African thought. And I'm using the word African, and I'm saying the term African thought just, parenthetically, but not necessarily as specifically. Because I'm going to tell you what the process typically goes like. And when I tell you what the process typically goes like, it's the same process that I went through, and that many of my brothers went through, many of my sisters went through, on the continent. Here it's a bit different. But usually what happens is that a young man will get to a place where it could be him or it could be, but I'll tell you how it goes. Where if the young man decides, I'm ready for a wife, I'm ready to have a wife, right? What he does is he will share that information with his father's youngest brother. Okay, he goes to the youngest brother, his father's youngest brother, his uncle, but the youngest uncle, or the father's youngest brother, right? And I know I'm saying father's brother because I'm just, when I'm back home, when I'm on the continent, that's typically, you might say uncle sometimes, but when you say uncle, like I'm called uncle, it's usually someone in the community, like how we say in the hood here too, uncle, auntie. But typically, if you're speaking about something specifically, you would say, oh, that's my mother's father, or my mother's brother, or my father's brother, or, you show the relation in terms of ownership, even in relationship to you as well. You show lineage just in your quick statements. Oh, my father's youngest brother. So you're immediately showing that lineage, So you would go to your father's youngest brother. You would say, uncle, I'm ready I want a wife, right? And your uncle in that moment right there is going to try you. Your uncle is going to make a determination as to if you really are ready or if there's something else going on. But if your uncle is like, okay, yeah, like I think you're ready, then what your uncle will do is your uncle will inform his older brother. So it doesn't matter. It might be 3 brothers. It might be 10 brothers. It has to go up the line. So each uncle informs their senior brother. It goes right up the line. Senior brother, senior brother, senior brother. It just goes up the line. Now it's a very drawn out process, because here in the West, like, you would probably be thinking like, okay, I want to get married. You have a group chat, and you might be like, why everybody just get on group chat? This is what I want to do. Let's talk about it. It doesn't happen like that. Like, it would be very rude. It would be considered very rude for me to go to my father and say, father, or like what I call my father, Abu, I want to be married. That is very rude. You don't do that. You see, so I got to go to my youngest uncle. Yeah, think about which one's my okay. So I know my youngest uncle, right? So I would go to my youngest uncle, and then that would go up the line. That's the proper way to do it. Now, it's very stretched out. And part of the reason why it's stretched out like that is because it gives me time to think about what I'm doing. There's a science to this, right? So while I'm sitting around waiting, and again, if you understand continent time, it's not at the next cookout or the next family dinner, we all gonna talk about it. It's not that. It's I'm going to, maybe myself and my older brother don't go to the same church or the same masjid. So I may have to travel to their town. Their town may be 4 hours away. So, I may say, well, I will travel there in 10 days and I will speak to them. I'm not even at my father yet. Like my uncle's not even at my father yet. And it might be 3 or 4 stops. This whole process might take a month or 2 or longer. It could take even longer. Right. And you can't like, yo, uncle, what's up? Come on. Like, it's not that type of situation. You have to wait, but while you're waiting, you're thinking about what you just asked. Am I really ready for a wife? Man, do I have everything in place? Is my money right? Is my savings right? Is my vehicle running right? Whatever the list it is that you got to, maybe I should go get a checkup. Let me go to the doctor and, see my urine's been kind of dark. Let me see what's up with that. Whatever it is, right? So you go through this whole process, and what happens, it finally reaches your pops, right? Finally reaches your pops, your father. And let's say if your father says, yes, you can, sounds good. Let's make it happen. What then happens, this is so important, so important. I want you to understand this, because I want you to understand that there's an ancient path and then there's a new path. And the ancient path is a bit more narrow than what many of us are used to. And a lot of times when you bring information about the ancient path, people will say, why you got to do all that? Or that was back then, or we ain't got to do that anymore. And look at the divorce rate, and you make your own determination. So what happens is your father then says, okay, you want a wife. All right, sounds cool. I could work with that. And what he does is he sets out to find you a wife. That's the first thing that happens. He sets out to find you a wife. Okay, so usually what he will do is he will canvas sort of like, he might canvas the church, like maybe they're churchgoers, or they go to the masjid. He's going to look among his own, right? Or again, he might call a meeting with his younger brothers, right? If, your father being, well, I'm assuming your father's the oldest, so that's actually probably not a good assumption, but your father could be in the middle, right? But it's still going to go from the youngest uncle up to him, right? But he might speak to his brothers and say, okay, my son, he's ready to marry now, and I want to find him a good woman. He may speak to his wife and speak to your aunties, his sisters, and the whole family canvases. The whole family canvases. I've been through this process. It's very interesting. The whole family canvases to find you a wife, right? A suitable wife. Let me be very clear on what I'm saying. A suitable wife. Okay. Not just like, well, whatever, let's just get this over with, because it's so critical, because the reason your father's, you're going to understand, I'm going to break down why the father is canvassing. Your father's going to canvass because, remember, and the family's invested because we are joining families. We are joining lineage now. So it's not just you fell in love with someone and you want to marry him. Oh, she's cute. She's got an education, whatever. Okay, yeah, good luck. Best of luck to you too. It's not that. It's, I am now joining myself to this family, and I need to know about psychological history. I want to need to know if there's any juju in his family. I need to know if there's financial issues. I need to know if this family is unethical. See, let me tell you something. Research on the continent is so annoying. It's so annoying. It's not like what we do when we do a Google search and we do a criminal background check. I have bought land on the continent before. What method? Let me skip that. I'll just tell you like what I went through. So for me, there was a family check. Like I need to speak to your mother. I need to speak to your father. I need to speak to your brothers, right? Especially because the bulk of my family was not on the continent. But then from being in that space on the continent for so long, I have family there. Like I have aunties and uncles on the continent, like to this day. So it was like, oh, let me speak to your auntie so-and-so. Let me speak to your uncle so-and-so. So my reference list was crazy. Like, okay, you speak to this one. This one's a chief. This one's this one's that. That one, she's, evangelist in the church. Like, you can speak to all of them. My credit is good. I get good credit in these village streets, right? So you go through that process. And the reason I say it's annoying because it's a drawn out process. And some of the questions that are asked, you'd be like, somebody could just lie, but that's not what happens. That's not what happens, because anybody who gives a false report, that's shame that's going to come to them later. That could mess it up when one of their relatives or another relative wants to marry now and they have to be questioned. It'll be like, oh, they're liars. That family lies. You see, so it could block that whole process, right? So people are not going to vouch for you unless you good money, right? So, going through that process, right? Pops will then search. A sister may be found, right? Okay, boom, we got a sister. They're going to ask that sister, are you open to courting? Now this may sound like some of the courting process in a new way. She'll say yes and no. Most likely they already know, but they'll say yes and no. Sometimes what will happen at that point, a meeting will be set up where I may travel to where that sister is and I get to see her, meet her, and I can say, yeah, I like her, I don't like her. And then from that point, a process will start, right? Depending on if we both say, yeah, we like each other, yeah, he's good, she's good, whatever, right? So for instance, in my case, that was pretty much what happened. And at that point, then me speaking to the sister's father, was really me and my uncle, rest in peace, he's no longer here, but having those conversations, the sister was then promised to me. Very important. Very important. Remember that part. If you write your notes, write that. There's a vow made. And one of the reasons that that's so critical is because when you have a courtship, as you read in the Anu way, courtship, betrothal, marriage, right? So when there's a vow made by the father of that young lady, when there's a vow made, that means she has now been promised to you. She's basically yours. Now, you may still be going through a process where you have to prep and you have to do certain things, but she's yours, right? Now, what that means is that if you're courting and it's not working out, she can't just hop out of the courtship because she didn't promise herself to the courtship. Her father did. So if there's an issue, she has to go to her father, or you both go to her father, and it's like, yeah, this isn't really what we thought it was going to be. Whoop-de-whoop-de-woo. Can we dissolve this or whatever? Whatever to say, work it out, talk it out, whatever it is, whatever the situation is, because he vowed her. Now, and that's what was the case for me, right? Now, if it's a situation where there's no father in place or there's no male figure in place, then she's vowing herself. Now, because she's vowing herself, the courtship will typically be longer, right? That's why we may have long courtships here on the continent, because a woman is pretty much making her own decision. And you already seen from the beginning, my choice is not respected, right? So I say, Pops, I want to get married. Well, no, I don't even say Pop, Uncle, I want to get married. Now, I could tell you, like, my youngest uncle, how much older is he than me? I think he's about maybe 13, 14 years older than me. Somewhere around there, right? But when I was coming up, my youngest uncle would, like, put me up on a lot of more so stuff I was doing wrong. Like whenever my father was disappointed with me, it would be my uncle who would come and explain. Like, yeah, nephew, when I was your age, I was doing that too. And let me tell you, it didn't really work out. This is boom, 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 boom. But just do this and that, and you good, and you done, and you won't have any more that those kind of talks like that, because we were closer in age. So his remembrance of his fast times at Ridgemont High, were more recent, right? So as you go up that ladder, each uncle has a level of wisdom above you and a level of wisdom above the uncle before them. You see? So, but my wisdom is not really trusted, like, as it should not be. My wisdom isn't really trusted even to pick my own queen. And I'm using the word queen for a reason, right? So let's say we go through this process, we're courting, and during that courtship, which is usually not very long, depending on circumstances. But once the father vows, technically we're in betrothal stage, technically, once the father vows. But that vow may take a month, right? At that point, we speak about dowry. Now, to be very clear, a dowry, like when I paid my dowry, a dowry wasn't me buying, my woman. The dowry was a sign of appreciation to the family for the gift that I was receiving. Okay. So I want to make that very clear, because unfortunately, in like later years, I see like dowries sometimes are abused, but you have bride price and you have a dowry, and they're not the same thing. The dowry is also, if something goes wrong, like let's say, most high forbid something happens to me, the woman has something to fall back on, because this investment, whatever it was given to the family. Now, we're talking a traditional family, right? It's plural. We come from plurality. Like, I don't, it's whatever. We come from plurality. So my father, and I'm going to explain, there's a reason why I'm bringing this up. My father is the one who pays the dowry. So the moment that there's conversations around, like, yeah, I vow I'm going to give, like my first dowry in the continent, I didn't pay. Right. So, my blood father didn't pay it, but there's my Baba, who was my, we'll say, acting father at that time. He's also since transitioned. He actually paid the dowry. I'm going to explain why. Okay. So at that point now, Pops is putting together his, whatever it is, like whatever they agreed upon, like, cow situation. It could be a car, like, there was a motorcycle that was a part of my dowry, different things like that. Blankets, there was some food, there was a list of things. And I think I actually still have that list somewhere folded in between a book or a notebook somewhere, that handwritten list of this is what was agreed upon, right? So the father pays the dowry. Okay, it's very important. The father pays the dowry, because again, well, I'll get to the again. I'll get to why. Okay, so now after the dowry is paid, it depends on what's going on. Like there may be a date that's set or time, based on various things. People need to travel, whatever like that, and then there's a marriage, right? Or rather, let me put it this way: there's a marital ceremony. And we're going to get to the marital ceremony later. For right now, today, we're just talking about courtship, right? Now, this is very similar. And this is one of the reasons why we know who we are when we find who we are. Genesis 24, Bereshith 24. You see the experience of Abraham or Abraham and Eleazar and Isaac. There was a time when Isaac said, I'll just put anything on the screen. There was a time when, Abraham said, okay, it's time for my son Isaac to have, I said Bereshit 24, y'all put up 2:24. But there was a time where Avram was like, it's time for my son Isaac to have, or Yitzhak, which is really his name, Yitzhak. For Yitzhak, it's time for him to have a wife, right? So what he did was he sent out his servant Eleazar. And he tells as Eleazar, he was like, yo, go find my son a wife, right? Sound familiar, right? Where, again, Isaac is not picking his own wife, right? Go find my son a wife. And he says, now, here's the critical thing. Go to my family's homeland, or Moladet. Moladet is in Hebrew, Moladet, homeland, right? Go to the Eretz, the country or the land of my Moladet, of my homeland, of my family, and find a child of my family or a daughter of my family, because I don't want my son marrying one of these Canaanite women. Oh, wow. I don't want my son marrying one of these heathen Canaanite women. So go out and go find a woman, right? And even in that moment, it was so critical because at that point, Avram was Zakin. Zakin means old. He was old, so he sent Eleazar. But it was so critical that he tells Eleazar to make a vow on my thigh. Back then, you would touch the under the thigh, and that's how you made a vow, like to another man, right? No diddy, but you would put the hand and you would make a vow, right? So he says, yo, touch under my thigh, and you promise you're going to do this, right? This is important when you think about wrestling the angel being struck in the thigh. You'll be able to piece it together later. But so he says, well, what if I find a woman and she doesn't want to leave? Like, she doesn't want to come back here and she wants to stay where I'm at. Should I then come back and get Yitzhak or get Isaac and bring him to her? And Avram was like, no. If she doesn't want to come back, leave her there. But it has to be a woman who will come back to here, because this is where Ma'el has promised us. Like, this is we're on a path here, and she has to come and join this path and this promise. My son can't be pulled away because he's the heir of this promise. He's carrying this thing forward, right? So Eleazar, he goes out, he takes a bunch of camels, and when he's out, he's speaking to Hashem Eloha Elohim, or who you may call God. And he's like, man, please let this work out. Like, let me be able to get this woman for my master, for my Adon. And he says, if I go to a well, long story short, we could go to the story another time. But if I go to a well and there's a woman and she's fetching water and she feeds my, Gamalim, Gamil is camel, Im is multiple, so Galaim, multiple camel, my camels. If she feeds my camels, then, I'll know, like, it's a sign, right? So they travel, they come to a watering place, right? Because now they're near the family of his master, they're near the family of Abraham. And he sees a woman, right? Rivka. And she's fetching water, and she's like, oh, I'll get water for all of the camels. So she goes and gets enough water for the camels. Long story short, Eleazar was like, yo, is there enough room in your father's house for me and my people and our camels? And she was like, yeah, there's plenty of straw, there's plenty of water, and we have room in our house. You can come and stay with us tonight and rest. So they go back to the house. Before they get ready to eat, he says, look, before we eat or do anything, I need to tell you why I'm here. And he tells them the story like, yo, I was sent out to find a wife for my master's son. And, you know, like, yo, I believe it's her. You know, he goes through the whole story. Rivka, who you call Rebecca, but her name was actually Rivka. And this is an important part. You like, well, I'm going through the whole thing. Because her father then lays it out to her like, yo, this is what's going on. Do you want to go with this man? And she says, yes, I do. Like, I want to see this guy, you know. Now, why I say that's an important part is because she had a choice. She could have said, no, I'm not feeling it, right? So I think that's an important thing to think about when you're speaking to someone who has a misunderstanding as to how relationships were formed in ancient times. You know, as if, you know, people will apply certain narratives that are just lies, like, you know, those women didn't have any choice and those women were slaves. No, they were not. They had a choice. She could have said, no, I don't want to go, you know, but she said, yeah, I want to go. And we know the whole story that happens later. She gives birth to Yaqub and Esau, and Yaqub later becomes Israel and is the father of the Israelites and so forth and so on, right? But she had to come back to the home of Abraham for that prophecy to fulfill properly. So if you think about it, even the situation that I went through or the courtship that I went through is very similar. And I'm going to explain some points as to why it happens the way it happens. My father had to pay the dowry. And the reason my father had to pay the dowry is because my first wife, which is kind of interesting because my family over there didn't acknowledge the women I already had, because it was like, you didn't go through the proper process. Like, this is your first wife. And it's still that to this day, right? So what happened was he had to pay the dowry because of a simple thing like this. I'm looking around. There's a bunch of stuff around me, even behind me. I have gifts that my father gave me. I'm looking at one right there. That's actually broken. I got to glue that back. I got to glue that back together, that gift. But yeah, I got stuff all around me that my father gave me, right? I still have them. I have birthday cards, pretty much all of them, from my father from the age of 11 on up, on my birthday cards, right? Because heck, I got my father's antique motorcycle, right? Because what your father gives you, you don't throw away. You don't throw away, right? Hell, I remember I was driving my pop's old Benz years ago, so old 7 Series Benz, and he was like, "Oh, you driving an antique? It's my father's Benz." Like, this does not get sold. What your father gives you, you don't throw away. What your Lord gives you, because my father is my Lord, you do not throw away what your Lord gives you. So if I would have paid my own dowry, I paid my own dowry and acquired my own wife. I do whatever I feel like. If I want to just get rid of her, I just get rid of her, whatever. But no, my father got me that wife. So the first wife that you receive is your queen. That's the queen. She's considered the queen of the family, right? Because your father gifted you with that wife. You cannot get rid of her. Can't get rid of her. Now, you may take on a second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, however many wives however your capacity is. You pay for the dowry for those subsequent wives. Okay? The first wife, you don't pay the dowry. Your father pays. The ones after that, you pay. Right? So if you divorce your second or your third or your fourth or your fifth wife, that's on you, whatever. But you do not divorce this first one. You do not divorce this first one. This first one is who bonded families. You got to remember, the woman is the glue of the family. She's the glue of the family. Why? Because it is through this woman that we branched out, and my family now became attached to this family over here. The man is the servant. You remember in the last session, I said, does the man have a servant's heart? He's the servant of the family. What are the children? The children are the inheritance of the family. You see? But my children are an inheritance of both families. You see? It gets interesting. And we'll get into that more when we talk about marriage, like what happens after the courtship. We're still just really dealing with the courtship, right? Even though I'm mentioning like, yeah, after marriage. But yeah, that is your queen. You can't get rid of her because your pops, your father, your Abu, he paid that dowry. He selected her. He said, here, son, this is a gift for you. This is a gift that I'm giving you. That's that. You see, now if you want to go on and get another one, okay, that's on you. I ain't got no money for you for that one. All my money went to this one right here. This is the one that I love, you know. And you see that oftentimes in families too. You know, a man may get remarried, but the family stays friends with the first wife that he was with before. You know, I've seen that even down to a good friend of mine when her mother transitioned. Her mother was her father's first wife. And the father didn't remarry. They divorced, father remarried. They buried the mother next to the father and didn't bury the new wife there. Like it was always acknowledged, like, yeah, he remarried, but we she's a nice lady. We acknowledge her, but this is your wife. You know, so sometimes you have a situation like that, right? So that's why the father pays that first dowry. When I said I was going to come back to that and explain it to you, right? And again, I saw the word proxy. I didn't even read the whole comment there, but my father on the continent, when I went through this process, it was my proxy. It wasn't my biological father who performed this, who searched for the woman. And truth be told, I didn't ask for a wife. You know, it was Haru. You need someone. Just laughing because they used to get on me. You know, you need someone to wash your clothes. You need someone to cook your food. You know, and because one of my brothers came by my spot once, and I was making some food, and I don't know. I was just, you know, sometimes, and men, you can like relate to this. You know, sometimes when you stay by yourself, you just freestyle. You don't feel like making, like you just want to eat. And I made some plantains that came out messed up, and I just like threw them in some soup. It was just nasty. I think it was plantains and cabbage and spit. It was just whatever. This is years ago, many years ago. And a man came through. He was like, "Oh, I would like to try some," you know. And he ate it. He was like, the whole vibe of the room changed. And yeah, and I swear, like maybe a day or two later, here comes one of the elders. Haru! You need someone to cook your food. Like, oh, okay, you told on me. You know what I mean? Like, I do know how to cook. I was being lazy that night, but that's a part of it. And then I used the wrong oil. I used like some nasty, it was coconut oil, but it wasn't like, it was like real unrefined coconut oil. It smells like car oil. You know what I mean? Like, so it was just some real bad, it was just nasty. But I was like, I don't care. I'm hungry. I gotta eat. You know, but you know, women, a wife won't do that to you. A good one won't. At least she'll throw the whole thing out. She'll be like, no, I'm gonna start over. You know, so it's important to understand. You know, one of the reasons that came forth too, when we're speaking about someone say oil, when we're speaking about courtship, is that time also came because of what I had established. At that point, I'm on the continent for a while now. I have my own spot. You know, I got my own land. I'm getting spots for others, you know, like for other projects we're working on stuff. So I got my motorcycle, you know, like I'm moving and grooving out there at the same time. I wasn't coming back to the States as much, only just, you know, for visa reasons, I would get long-term visas, but you basically just got to leave and you come right back. So sometimes I would just literally jump across the border, jump right back, or I would take that opportunity, fly back to the States, because at that time I was bringing artwork back. I was getting artwork there, coming back here, selling stuff like that. So I might just like do like a quick turnaround trip, but I'm basically home. I'm there all the time, right? So yeah, I had a home established there at that time, right? Still do, but at that time I'm a single man in a home. Pretty young. Yeah, I guess that's considered young. Yeah, yeah, I guess I was young, kind of. Not that young, but kind of. I don't know. So that takes us to Second Thessalonians, right? When we look at Second Thessalonians 3:10, for even when we were with you, this we commanded you, that if anyone would not work, neither would they eat. Would he eat? Right? So the concept there is that at this point now, I'm moving like a man. You see, I'm moving like a man. That's something I always establish with the children. You know, like when you first wake up, you got to do your chores. First thing, I mean, brush your teeth. Don't be talking with no funky teeth, but do your chores. You're not getting breakfast before you do chores, because I always instilled, if you don't work, you don't eat. Right. So that Second Thessalonians breaks that out. Like, so I'm now working, so therefore I'm allowed to eat. So if I can chop, you know, I can eat now. I'm proving myself as a man in that sense, and that I'm doing what I'm supposed to. Now that's important because we're talking about courtship, and I have had people come to me talking about courtship who do not work, who do not have income, who do not have anything, but they met some sister who they like, and now they want to hasten to the what is the altar. They want to hasten to the altar now, right? You know, and I want her, and she wants me, and yeah, but you haven't established yourself properly, you see. And I have definitely had people walk away very frustrated with me behind that, because you know, I wouldn't do their wedding for them or whatever, or I wouldn't guide them through a courtship, because I'm not. This is not my culture. What y'all doing is not my culture. I can't co-sign that. When we look at Ecclesiasticus, the 9th chapter. I mean, I'm sorry, the 29th chapter. Ecclesiasticus 29:22. Better is the life of a poor man in a mean cottage than delicate fare in another man's house. Now, what that means is that if you don't have your own spot, you shouldn't be thinking about courtship. Even if your spot is a piece of crap, it's better that you live in a crappy, rundown spot than be in another man's spot, and you know, oh, I live in the cottage house in the back, or I live in the pool house in the back of the mansion. Yeah, let's start courting. Let's do our thing. No, if you don't have your own spot, if you're not working to earn your own bread so that you can eat, you're not ready for courtship. And I know that one may kind of hit people a certain kind of way, because I do know a lot of guys who, yeah, I just gotta say it. I know a lot of guys who they do plurality, like internationally, you know, and the woman is still at home with her parents. And he'll be like, yeah, this is my mate. This is my other wife. Now she lives down there with her parents. I live over here. And you might be living with your parents, or you might not even have a spot. You might be homeless. You know, you going from spot to spot, and, you know, taking contract jobs in this state and that state. So it's like, I don't really need my own place, because, you know, I just go where the work is. But I got wives over here, but you don't really have wives because they're not in your home. They're not in your homestead. They're still living with their family, right? So even if, again, your house is a piece of crap, you know, or your apartment is a piece of crap, you ain't be like, well, look, man, all I can afford is this $125 a month in rent. You know what I mean? Like, heck, this is a young brother I'm real cool with. I think he just moved back to the States, actually. But he was on the continent for a long time. Kind of did like what I did back in the days. And he married this South African sister, beautiful, beautiful young sister. And his spot, like they were renting a room basically, and he had no water, he had no electricity, he just had four walls. You know, he had four walls. Young brother from Atlanta. He just had them four walls, and they were making it happen. But you know what? That's your spot. That's your spot. And I remember when he first told me, he was like, "Yo, I got no water." I was like, "Man, don't you gotta tell me that. That's your castle. I don't care what you ain't got or whatever. That's your castle. That's your woman. You put her in. Y'all are in y'all spot. Y'all are doing your thing, and you know you'll build from there. Things are happening from there, but you have established your four walls." And he had income coming in. He was doing, you know, things. But you know, when you go to another country and you fall in love with it, but you ain't got nothing set up, you know, you see what the life of an immigrant can really be like, you know, especially you don't speak the language either, you know. So yeah, you have to have your own spot before you start courting, right? So when my elder came to me and was like, Haru, you need a wife, Haru. You know, it's you have your own spot here. You have a home, you have a motel, you have all these different things that you're doing, but you don't have anyone sort of taking care of you. And it was very wise. It was very, 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 very wise. Because I didn't realize at that time how much of an advantage it was until I went through the process, because I was used to dealing with females who didn't bring that much value, to be honest with you, at that time in my life. They didn't bring that much value other than what I directed them to, which is a different kind of story. But outside of that, nah, you know. So when you have someone who really becomes like your emissary in a certain place, and really can speak to you and make linkages for you, it's a different thing. And then now you got a family linkage. It's different, right? So we look at Bereshit 2:24. Bereshit 2:24, right? And with this particular scripture, it speaks about the cleaving of a man. You know, therefore a man shall leave his father, or leave his Av, and leave his Im, or leave his Abba, and leave his Ima, and shall cleave unto his Isha, and they shall be Basir Echad, or one flesh. Basir or Basar is flesh. Oh, you see it there in the Hebrew. They shall be Basir Echad. Basir is flesh, and Echad means one. You know, Echad, right? Echad is one. So in that instances right there, it's telling you that they are coming under the same roof. They are coming into the same home. You see, that's an important part of courtship, right? So again, we're talking about like some of the preliminaries of courtship. We're talking about some of the preliminaries. You know, dude got to have his own spot, right? Now, I'm going to mention something too important. Rebecca was a virgin, because that was the thing that they said when she was at the well. Oh, she's young, fair. She was beautiful, and they said she was a virgin. Okay, so I want you to think about that for a second, because I know a lot of times when it comes to relationships and getting together, there's a lot of demands that are put on the man. You know, especially if it's plurality. Like, it's always that, can you take care of 3 wives? Can you afford 3 wives? 3 virgins? But if you've been out here slinging that thing, you know, and you are of advanced age, then you've been taking care of yourself. So don't come at me with that. Isaiah 4:1. Do not come at me with that. You will make your own bread. You will make your own clothes, you know, but I might hook you up and let you be called by my namesake. Chill out. Chill out. All right. So just like there's requirements for the man, there's requirements for the woman. And again, I know that that's not the most pleasant thing to hear. But again, when you're looking at the science of coming together in that sense, you got to understand that there's families coming together, there's spirits coming together, there's guardians that are coming together, or you know, or what we may call the egbe. There's whole spiritual communities that are coming together between these two people. So, that relationship has to be mutually agreed upon by the family itself, by both families, excuse me. It has to be mutually agreed upon. So, there's that process, like I said, of making sure that this process is respected and is vital. And then there's the messages that go back and forth between each family, which is a very interesting thing to watch. And it requires patience. This whole process requires patience. And if you don't have patience, you're not going to be able to do it. So sometimes when you see these hot-blooded, fast sort of romances here in the West, it kind of gives you a contrast as to how we typically do things, not working from that sense of lack so much, or like, man, somebody's going to snatch her up or somebody's going to snatch him up. You're living in a place of abundance. So it's cool. I've had that happen to me before. It was a sister who I was dealing with and playing around, and the exact process happened on me, where a brother came to the village, and it was his uncle, who I'm cool with. His uncle lives in the village, and came and brought the brother to come see her, and she liked her, and they were betrothed while I was sitting there, being too cool for school, So, but again, you're in a place of abundance like that. It's not really, another one bites the dust. Good luck, best of luck to you both, right? So, after that period of sort of like sending those messages back and forth, there's a formal introduction. In some places, there's a knocking, right? And I've spoken about that before, where there's a knocking fee, even where the man will come to the house, he'll knock on the door, literally, and he'll say, "Hey, I would like to, be with this daughter. I would like to date her and get to know her." And most of the time, 100% of the time, when the man is coming to knock, the family already knows. It's just a formality. But he brings some gifts with him when he knocks. Usually it's some liquor. It might be some cola nuts. It depends. It might be some liquor, some candy, but usually it's liquor and cola nuts, and he knocks and, knocking. A lot of times he'll say knocking, because depending on the setup of the house, it might not be anything to knock on, so because I have served as uncle during the knocking before, and, young brother was out there knocking, so that process happens. And like I said, in that process, even where the dowry is given, oh my goodness, when the dowry is given, it's like a parade, because at that point, the wives of the house, really of both houses, they are like the stars of the show. See, through this process, like, everybody gets an opportunity to come forth and shine through that courtship process. So it's like, yeah, your uncles in the beginning, the uncles are doing the negotiation, the negotiating of the dowry. And sometimes it's even like, I remember with mine, one of the uncles, he's a slick dude, man. I mean, we're very, very cool to this day, but he's slick as heck. And his English, he couldn't speak any English at all. He couldn't, well, in a weird way, he could not speak or understand any English, but he could read English impeccably, better than any of the rest of them. It was very odd, So I remember this is a long time ago, I think I had on a Mecca shirt, and I was at the house, and he said, "You're a Muslim. You're a Muslim." I said, "Why you say that?" He said, "Mecca." And I said, "Oh, you could read?" He said, "Yes." And then he's like reading books and stuff like that, but couldn't really understand or speak English, But he was real funny. He was slick because he wanted cash. He was like, "Oh, it should be cash." He's going off, and he was like, "A promise is a promise." He kept saying a promise. That's the only English he knew. I'm like, "Yo, I didn't promise you any money. Like, what are you talking about?" And he said he didn't want Naira. He wanted US dollar. US dollar, US dollar. And I was like, "No, I'm like, and he's like, relax. Like, We got this. Relax. You know, I'm like, yeah, he's starting to piss me off. You know, as I said, it takes a certain level of patience, man, and understanding of the culture. Now, me and this like, we're like, to this day, we're like very close friends. You know what I mean? But that's just how it goes. That's the process, you know. And part of it, let's see what your temperament is. Yeah, we're gonna mess with you. Let's see what your temperament is, you know, looking you up and down and all of that, you know. And I remember when I walked in, it was like one of the aunties was like, "Oh, Ashanti," you know. No, I'm sorry. She was like, "Oh, Igbo," because a lot of Igbos have lips like mine now, and round faces. And she's like, "Oh, Igbo," and I was like, mm-mm. And Uncle's like, "Just chill. They messing with you. They messing with you." And at that time, did I have my locks yet? No, I didn't have locks at that time. I had braids, and I had long braids. And I remember because I came up on my motorcycle, so when I took my helmet off, a man who was there was like, "Yo, it's freaking." It's like, "Yo, they are saying that you look like a woman. Yo, like, here, you look like a woman." And I'm like, "Yo, you know how that's like real offensive, you know?" But it was because of my braids. You know what I mean? But again, you got to understand the culture, because, like, yeah, if somebody said that in the West, you'd be all kind of bees and mother effers and stuff. But over there, it's just like they're trying to figure out, like, what is this? What's going on? You know, like, his hair. Oh, okay, you know, I had long braids too. And it's like, oh, what the cornrows, you know. Um, Forget it, when I had the locks, it was a whole nother thing. But anyway, the women are really the stars of that moment. They're really the stars because they're the ones who are receiving the dowry, and they're, even if it's cows and horses, and they're the ones who are usually transferring it over, right? So in that moment, like, when it comes to marriage and courtship, it is the women who really, like, they are the stars of the show. Hands down, they're the stars of the show. You know, and they can be very helpful too. They can be very, very, very helpful. Like, my aunties were very helpful in me understanding a lot of the culture that I didn't understand, like not knowing who to give gifts to at certain times. Because even to this day, I get WhatsApp messages, "Oh, you should send so and so this," you know, because sometimes, especially if you don't understand the language, you don't know who's advocating for you. So there were sisters who were advocating certain that I didn't know. My Yoruba wasn't that strong back then, you know. And I had aunties who was like, "Oh, go buy this one a watch." She would like a watch. It's something small, some small gift. Buy her a little watch or something like that to say thank you, you know. So the aunties can be very, very helpful in that sense. But yeah, that day of the engagement, when you go from that courtship, quote unquote, to betrothal, and in more ancient or traditional systems, there's not much courtship. It's mainly just betrothal. That's why when you see in scripture, it's mainly betrothal, because again, our fathers have discussed this. Our fathers know what's that. So what do we really got to talk about? You know, when our lords have already worked everything out, you know, and that's an important thing to understand as well. So really, most of the time that's taken is collecting the dowry. Sometimes that could take months, it could take a year, depending on what's being asked. And if you're in a culture where there's a dowry and a bride price, yeah, you know, it can get kind of costly. So even at the wedding is very festive. Even like the wedding is another situation. We'll get into the wedding where the women are the stars. The women run the weddings, man. And I learned that. Yeah, I don't want to say that. I just had to learn to shut up a lot of times, man. I had to learn to be quiet because, you know, when you're a man who's used to helping and always doing things, it could be very offensive. If you don't understand the culture, it could be offensive. It's like, oh, there's a cake. I'll carry the cake, and you sit. No, sit down. Sit down. It looks heavy. I sit down. Like I had to have, like, again, aunties come to me like, you need to go over, like, sit down. Like, this is our time to show how fly we are. Even negotiating with the band and stuff like that, where you think, I said, man, let me get, and the aunties are, and they face like, no, I'm not paying you that. Like, that's their time, right? So that's some of the premise of it. And like I said, I'm including my personal experience, right? Because, and I have many courtships. Like, I've been through many courtships. That's well over 35, 40 courtships. All right. Now, they have not all been like the ones that I have had on the continent. Right. And I'm specifically mentioning this one because it was my first. My first on the continent. And because it was my, first kind of, or let's say my first legitimate courtship, I came into it, kind of eyes wide open and just like, okay, do I stand here? Where do I go? Do I go here next? And even understanding that, even coming in as a rich American, if you will, I still didn't pay the dowry. I didn't pay the dowry. I didn't have to buy a house. And I'm saying these things because you need to understand this. If you ever court someone on the continent, there's a lot of games played. There's a lot of games played, and you need a guide. You will get got, especially you women who you blow out your processes here and, from just being American. And then you go over there like, I'm going to go get me a strong, masculine African man. And he really don't probably want you, but he knows how to play them games. I'm telling you, and I've warned women on this and they've ignored me thinking I was being a hater. And then they gotten those calls later like, I just found out he has another wife, or he just had another baby, or I brought him over here on a visa and he disappeared. I can't find him. Yeah, a lot of games being played. So now when we look at courting in the Anu way, courting is the process by which we take a prescribed set of time to get to know the individual that we are looking to wed. During this time, we also seek to learn about their relations. This process is to determine if there is compatibility, not only between the two persons, but also if the families of those individuals are compatible with one another. The process of courtship is not for the persons involved to wed. The purpose of courtship is for the two to know one another. If this has happened, the courtship has been a success. It is a wonderful thing to get to know a fellow Anu member. So, of course, we're speaking about courtship within the realms of Anu. When I courted my first queen, I wasn't, and notice I'm using the word queen because she's considered the queen of the family. It wasn't an issue of, are we compatible? It was already determined that y'all two are compatible, and you got to realize too, at that time, I'm Ifa up heavy. You know what I mean? I'm Ifa up heavy. I'm carrying my Baba's implements bags. I'm walking with the kopwele around my neck. That's the practice opwele. So no, this has been decided. This has been divine. This is it. So you just get yourself ready. You just, you just get yourself ready. This is happening. This is happening. Which is beautiful. It's a beautiful thing when you have that level of communal oversight, and you have that level of communal care and communal concern. And when something is abnormal, someone's calling you out on it. Like to this day, like my man coming through and eating, my food was messed. And I can prepare food. I promise you I could prepare food. I was tired. I don't remember what was going on, but I remember we got back real late. We were out somewhere And I was just like, yo, I just want to eat something. And like, I want to take a nice cold shower, eat something, and just like chill out. You know what I mean? Like I don't even know if I had a TV in my spot yet at that point. I don't think I had a TV in my spot. But yeah, I don't think I had a TV. I didn't have a satellite at that point. But I had my books and I had my radio, you know, and I was like, I just want to chill out, man. Like I'm spent and I made some nastiness and yeah, it messed up my stomach. So it probably messed up his too. So he went complaining to the elders. Harut is up there cooking some ferocious meals, you know. But again, that's a level of communal concern. Now, in the Anu way, we say courtships are particularly important for those of us in Anu who have been scattered across the planet and find ourselves living among strange people in strange nations. We do not have a common experience with those we may seek to mate with. We may not have a youthful history and camaraderie that we share with those we desire for pair bonding. As a result, we cannot make firm cultural postulations that would be possible if we were raised under the same set of principles and educated with the same objectives in mind. A courtship gives us an opportunity to see if we are prepared for a union. It also provides an occasion to test if the woman can assimilate to the mission and desires of the man in question. That's a very important thing, right? So the assimilation, being able to flow with we over here now, we're doing this, we're doing that, right? That's super, 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 super critical. But also the aspect of being scattered. Remember, like when Abraham sent Eleazar, he was like, yo, go to my people and get a woman. Do not pick a woman. And he made him swear an oath. The oath was not bring a woman here. That wasn't, because he was like, yo, she won't, if you can't find anybody. He said, if you can't find anybody, you're free from the oath. Don't worry about it. If she won't come back, you're free from the oath. Don't sweat it. But you make an oath that you will not bring a foreign woman back and try to trick me. You make sure you bring a woman of my own kind back. You see, so your courtship allows you that time and that to see, like, is this person of my fabric? Is this person of my texture? Because that's important for what we're going to bring forth. All right, I'm gonna skip ahead a little bit with that. One of the things that we look for, I'm gonna just go through some of the things we look for. And again, if you want to read about the courtship process, get a copy of the Anu Way. I encourage you to. We ask for the name of the or what's included in the when you put in courtship papers on someone, the name of the requester, the age of the requester, the location of the requester, the name of the person being asked for courtship, the name of the jegna of the requester, the name of the jegna of the person being asked for courtship, and a brief explanation of how the requester came to know the requested, the length of time the requester has been a member of our new nation, and the current relationship status of the requester. Right? Those are things that you that's the information you give. We want to know who's over you. Now we know the head of all the men, the men in Anu technically is Yahweh, but who is your earthly jegna? Who do I go to find out about you or to ask questions about you? And the same thing with the woman or the man. Because when you're putting in courtship papers, a woman can put in courtship papers on a man, or a man can put courtship papers on a woman. So it's not a one-way sort of thing, like you may be thinking like it's just a man. Now, of course, a man who findeth a wife, findeth a good thing, absolutely. But a woman can put in courtship papers on me, which has happened many times. And if we go there, it's still I found a gift, I found a wife, so it doesn't necessarily have to be I went out searching and she was on Sunset Strip hoeing and I was like, hey, like it doesn't have to be that. It could be, I'm joking, sort of, but it could be it could be that she reached out to me or expressed an interest in me and put in courtship papers. I still found myself a wife, right? So you want those Jegna's names, and how did you get to know the person? Again, was it was she on the strip, and you know what I mean? Because sometimes it's this little kind of funny, like little funny little games played. You know what I mean? Like she came up to my car, asked me, you want to have some fun, and I asked her, well, do you take Bitcoin? What's up? You know what I mean? Like you got to really like see like, well, how did you two meet? Like what was the conditions? You know, because sometimes you might have a situation like what's going on now with that. I don't even want to say the name, but there's a Hebrew community led by a very boisterous, I'll say, pastor in Tennessee. And there's been some claims of adultery in that congregation, that he's basically has taken somebody's wife some years ago. So you want to know, like, okay, how did you two meet, man? Is this an adulterous sort of situation? What's the status of the requester? Because could be a woman who's saying, well, I'm separated from my husband. Okay, well, you've been put away. If I deal with you now, I'm committing adultery. You haven't been divorced. You've been put away. Or it could be a man who's saying, well, I currently have a woman and I'm plural, and we're looking to add another woman to our family. And this person may say, well, I'm not interested. I'm interested in monogamy. I'm not interested in that. So, you want to know the relation status as well. And how long have you been a member of our new nation? Because sometimes people do come in looking for some snatch, or they're looking for some staff. They're just joining the community to get with someone. And like I said last night, when that doesn't work out, they throw everything. I don't have nothing to do with the community, or the religion, or however they perceive it. That is very common. That is very, very common. I've seen that so many times, in particular with women who came in trying to get a particular thing. And when they didn't get it, when they left, the first thing that comes off is the head wrap. First thing that comes up, now you're showing your hair. Okay. Now you're showing your hair. And they usually band up together. You'll find now later that they're now cool with each other. Like all of the outcasts from the kingdom, from the community, they're now congregating together, right? Because they came in for a particular thing and it wasn't really from the heart. So you want to know, how long they've been around. And what I usually suggest, like, especially for the men, because sometimes men could be a little wolfy, is if there's a sister who comes in and she hasn't been what I knew for at least a year, leave her be. Like, let her make a determination first if this is where she wants to be, if this is a culture she wants to live, before you be rushing all up in her face. Hey, sister, how's it going? Like, give her some space to see if this is what she wants to do. Now, anybody could court however they want. Like, if you be like, I ain't doing that, man. She's been here 3 days. I want her. All right, well, that's grown people doing whatever they want to do. I have no control over that, but I just have suggestions. One of the things that are on the way is courtships need not be announced to the community. In truth, it is better to court in private. Betrothal should be announced, but courtship should be given insulation from the eyes of those who may have formed an unjust opinion about either party. It is important that the self-worth of all participants is kept intact. I have had some nosy members who have felt entitled to know people's relationship status. If you notice, y'all don't see my women. Y'all don't see my family. One important thing, and this is for men and women, you want to keep your relationship together, learn privacy, especially if you are a person who's in the public eye. I know a lot of times, especially when it comes to plurality, guys, they like to have their women on either side of them to show like, yeah, this is, see what I'm doing over here? Look what I'm doing. It's real pimpish, right? And they always lose their situations like that, man. Who are you putting yourself on display for? You got to think about that. Like, who are you? Who exactly are you seeking to impress? I have been in certain environments and certain lifestyles where me walking in the room with 6 women and they're all wearing matching clothes or all got chains on with my name on it, and they're showing respect and stuff, that meant something to that room, because there might have been another guy across the way where he had 6 women or 8 women or 3 women or 2, and that meant something within our brotherhood, within our fraternity. outside of that, what are you trying to prove? What are you trying to show to other people? So, even when you're courting, keep that to yourself, because you might be in several courtships that don't work out. And then you'll get a name as like a serial courter. Like, oh, they just playing around. They courted this one, courted that one. And it's important to know that courtship doesn't mean that we together. We're not boyfriend and girlfriend because we're recording. We're still the same thing that we were yesterday. It's just we're getting to know each other. That's it. We're just getting to see if there's compatibility, but we're not together. And sometimes when you have people looking from the outside in who don't have an understanding of that, that's how they may perceive it, that these people are together. Okay. I usually suggest that a courtship be a minimum of 3 months. And again, it depends on the person. You may need longer. You may need 9 months, but at least 3 months typically. And for each person, it's different. For myself, I don't need to court that long, but that's because I have years of courtship practice. I kind of know how to move it along, but at least around 3 months, depending on what's going on. But, even with that courtship length, if you want to see, and this is really important for the woman, you want to see if the man can organize a courtship. There have been plenty of courtships where people have come to me, like the man, and asked me for each thing to do every step of the way. Right? Like every 7 days is like messaging me like, okay, so we did this last strong. What do you think we should do? Give me the woman. Give it to me. Because I'm obviously structuring for you. And she's thinking, as you give it to me, you can't have her. So usually I'll back up. I have templates that I might give guys, but I've had situations where dudes couldn't even follow the templates. And the truth is, the template is in an new way. It's in solutions for dysfunctional family relationships. So if you're in a courtship with a guy and it's just like, there's no structure, y'all ain't really doing nothing, he's not ready for a woman. He's not ready, because one of our main responsibilities and jobs as men is to bring containment to a woman's chaos. And containment is important. I want you to think, when you think about containment, because a lot of people may see that as like an oppressive sort of statement. Like they may see containment as like control, and it is control to a degree, but think about what a clamshell does for a pearl. A pearl is soft until you take it out of the shell. Once you take it out of the shell, it doesn't grow anymore, and it becomes hardened. So for a pearl to remain soft and beautiful, it has to remain within the space where it's contained. You see, so you want to see if that man has the ability to structure a courtship. If he says we're going to speak every day at 10 o'clock, is he there at 10? Or are you getting messages 5 minutes before, like, oh, I can't make it today, or I'll talk to you tonight, or I'll talk to you 3 days from now, or whatever it is. You get a sense, and you shouldn't fight against it. You shouldn't say, oh, you said this yesterday, but no, let him just do what he does, because it's court. You're learning about him. Or the same thing with the woman. I've been in courtships with women where some days they wouldn't call. I'll be like, what happened? I just wasn't feeling it today. I was in a funk today. Those courtships didn't last. Okay, cool. I'm making notes. Yeah, I got to get rid of this one. You got hormonal issues. I'm not dealing with nobody with no damn hormonal issues. Every day, one day you up, one day you down, and me not doing that. Unless you got something that's diagnosed and you're taking medication for it, nah. But see, you get to learn those sort of things, like a person's level of organization. Or if it's a phone call or a visit, are they distracted during that time? Are they focused? Things like that. So you want to, like, as a woman, you really want to see how this man structures. It's really his job to structure the courtship. If he says, yo, it's going to be 3 months, let it be the 3 months. If he says, we're going to go to this event, we're going to go to a museum, we're going to go to an Anu retreat, let's say, we're going to do that. See how he moves that along. And men, even in those instances, remember, you're not giving that woman money. So if you say we're going to the Anu retreat, can she afford to go to the retreat? If not, that now you're getting some information in. Can he afford to go to the retreat? You're getting some information in. So these are all like important things. And like in the Anu way, I structured the courtship in 3 stages. Stage 1, discovery and common interest. Stage 2, role identification. Stage 3, full disclosure. Right? So it's not really to stage 3 where you're going to be asking questions like, what's your credit score? Sure, you could ask in the beginning if you want, but you probably want to save those. What's your credit score? What's your body count? You ever had any STIs? Do you have any STDs? How many pregnancies have you had? Things like that. Because in the beginning, when you're just discovering your common interest, if it may not work out at that point, a person may feel exposed. If okay, I got this low credit score, maybe I have an STD, I have I got a bunch of abortions under my belt, whatever it is, or whatever, miscarriages or whatever person's situation is. So you want to pretty much leave that stuff to the end. But in that first stage, you're kind of poking around. And if you're a man who's observant and moving like a man, you're going to figure out most of what you need to know in that first stage, to be honest. If you're doing a courtship right, I'll be so honest with you. The last stage would just be a formality. Like you may save to ask certain questions, but you kind of already know. You should be able to peep if she's promiscuous or has been promiscuous. Everybody doesn't have this superpower, but I can literally smell STDs. I know that sounds crazy, but I can sense when a woman has a disease. You know what I mean? But you're going to pick up on a lot of things, like how she is, a person's level of organization. Or if a guy tells you in the beginning of a courtship, like, yeah, I want to start my own business, I want to do something, and you're hearing a whole lot of I want. And you might ask a question like, okay, so do you have a business now? Have you ever had a business? And he's like, nah, my thing is I got all these ideas. I just got to organize them. You're supposed to organize my ideas. You ain't got your ideas organized. You're never going to have a business, and you got to understand a woman is a gift of wealth. So if he can't manage his economy, he certainly can't manage a woman. You see, he certainly will not be able to manage a woman. And I know some women, you look for that. You want that situation where he can't really tell you anything because he's so sloppy. But that you will always be destroyed by a situation like that, and you'll always be miserable, and it will always end up ending with you making a jackass out of yourself. So the best thing to do is just to be right from the beginning. You know what I mean? So you want to look at, I say a courtship is an opportunity to test a woman. But men, you should have a vision and foresight where you pretty much know pretty quickly what she's about. But for a woman, a lot of times y'all can be a lot more gullible. So this is your opportunity to ask critical questions that you wouldn't think of asking, or things that you may notice and pick up on. Ask questions about them. You might notice something like this. The guy never says anything positive about women, ever. Right? So instead of saying to him, like, you seem like you got an issue with women, because sometimes a stupid, foolish woman that asks a dumb question like that, which is offensive, and then be like, I'm just asking. You're a rude jerk. Instead, you ask other questions like, what's your relationship like with your mother? What was your upbringing like? Like, what are some of the memories you remember from childhood with your mother? What about the other women in your family? Like, do you communicate with them? Oh, you have a sister. You got to, oh, okay. Do you speak to your sister often, or you don't speak that much? Why not? Why so? What are the things that you typically talk about? Do you go to visit your mother? Or do you go to visit your grandmother? What's that experience like? And the same thing could be said for fathers. Like, what was your relationship like with your father? And unless you're a licensed mental health counselor or a psychologist or psychologist or someone who works in the mental health field, your diagnosis may not be totally spot on. So don't look at it like, yeah, he's this and you don't. But you're probing and you're trying to do discovery, and you have to learn to ask respectful and responsible questions to try to figure things out. And sometimes it's not even the answer, because sometimes people learn how to give the answer that will make them look the best. When you are courting, you're just talking to someone's representative. You ain't really talking to the real person. But a lot of times it's the subtle body language. Sometimes it's the way a person answers a question. Sometimes you have people who have issues with men, for instance, and you'll ask a question and they can't shut up. That'll tell you something. You could ask somebody like, yo, ask a woman, how did your last relationship end? Like, why? Oh, not how, why did it end? Well, I have a problem where I pick losers, and I do this thing where I try to like see the good in people, and I don't see the bad, and I see the good, and then it comes out later and I get burnt, and you be like, oh, okay. And then they'll keep going, because a lot of these men out here, because now that anger done fumed up, and they can't stop. You see, sometimes, and then they might turn it on you. Why you ask me something like that? Okay, now you know what you're dealing with. But yeah, you wanna ask questions that help to bring out that discovery, so you can understand what you're looking at, or understand what you're understanding. Song of Solomon 2:7. Song of Solomon 2:7. Daughters of Jerusalem, I charge you, do not arouse awaken love into it so desire. So meaning, a lot of times we get into this situation where we arouse or awaken something that we're not really able to manage. You think about a lot of times with young ladies, think about the way they act with the first guy they have sex with. It usually doesn't work out well. It's usually a disaster. And part of the reasons that it's a disaster is because a lot of times young women don't know how to manage the proper selection of a lover. And they don't know how to manage what it's like to have a certain kind of pleasure, right? So let's say it could be the first guy who, you had an orgasm with, and you're just like, he's the magician. This feeling, I never felt like this before. And you start to lose your mind because, again, you're not mature enough to make this selection. And I know that we live in a world now where it's difficult to understand that or to respect that, because we have this thing where it's like, you can't tell me about me. And people get off on that kind of thinking. But again, that's not African, and it's not communal. You see, it's not communal whatsoever. At that time when my queen was picked, I could have said, like, I know what I like, or don't bring me back none of this, or get me one of the ones that got the ding, the name, and I had to respect, like, if you were so smart, you would have came to this country with a woman. But obviously, even the women that you were choosing at that point, you weren't even blended that well that they were going to come over and live in this foreign country for this amount of time. So maybe you don't know everything that you think you know. So leave it to some who may be a little bit more wiser, more advanced, and who have known at that point, knew me for years. I've known you for a long time and kind of have a sense of your proclivities and the way that you move. So a lot of times we rush and we hasten to certain experiences because we don't have the patience and we don't have the regard for modesty. Modesty is that moderation. It is that ability to say, well, let's go through a process. I can tell you there's been plenty of times where I've met women who have expressed an interest in me, and I have said to them, well, I court women, I court. So I don't have casual sex. And sometimes they may look at like, or they'll find out, oh, you're plural, you have multiple women. In their mind, that says he's a freak who screws. It's about, he likes a lot of sex. So if I throw the drawers at him, we're going to have sex. And then when they hear like, nah, this is a process. There's a process. And if you're not really a part of a certain culture, I probably don't even want to go through that process with you. Or if you're not even eating a certain way, I don't want to do that. Not at this stage of my life. When I was younger, yeah, I was in the trenches wrestling with women, boy. You're going to take this weave off. You're going to eat better. You're going to stop hanging out with this one. You're going to get out them clubs. You're going to do this, and you're going to be a part of my program. And this is what we're going to do. We're going to get this money. We're going to do that. I was doing all that wrestling and wrangling and guerrilla, plurality when I was much younger. And then when I got older, I learned, like, Haru, you something special. And you ain't got to convince nobody or nothing. And if a woman comes in your presence and wants to be a part of your orbit, and if she doesn't come with her hands like this and her head down, like whatever you need, whatever you want, don't even mess with it. You see, don't even mess with it. That's what I learned, right? That took me years to get to that point. A lot of headache and a lot of going back and forth and heated discussions and stuff like that. So, but everyone is different, you know, and sometimes that happens because you hastened. You were driven by lust, maybe not lust for the flesh, but lust for other things that, you know, you wanted. And you didn't make sure that you were in agreement before you tried to walk together. And like I told you before, an agreement is a contract. We don't even have a contract and we're trying to walk together. So that's why it's going to be easy for people to jump in and out of this contract. So that's your science of or your rhyme and reason for courting. And like I said, some of my own personal experience of the importance of courtship. You gotta court, man. You gotta court. And don't be afraid if you're a woman to court a man. Don't, this whole Western thing where you sit back and you know, you got your fan and you waiting for the man to see you and you're gonna be sitting there until that fan is shaking because of your bad nerves from old age. Okay? If you see someone, you know, you put them papers in, you know, because you got to understand, especially when you're in a community together, we all brothers and sisters anyway. It ain't nothing to be ashamed of. If I see my sister and she's single, I know she needs a man. If I see my brother and he's single, I know he needs a woman. There's no shame in that, you know. Now it might be different. Everybody's situation is different. She may have chased off every man that she had an opportunity with, and he may have chased off every good woman who came and tried to love him, you know, and that's to be found out and that's to be discovered. But that's going to be addressed before we even have those conversations, you know. But you got to also be ready to court. You have to be in a position where it's like, as a man, one of the important things, man, I see a lot of guys, they come along, they ain't got nothing to give their women intellectually, nothing. They just want to screw. All they have is hard penis. You know, hard penis in a bag of weed. And for them, that like that, well, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. And they have trouble understanding when a greater man comes along and has more to offer because he's moving like a man and you're not moving like a man. So you're not qualified to court. Like, so she may turn down the courtship papers from you, and it may take them from this other guy, and you're confused and can't understand. That's why we have in the Anu way, there's a listing of the required qualities for men, the required qualities for women. If you look at those required qualities and you're like, man, I ain't got that, I ain't got that, I ain't got that, and I'm not even trying to get those things. I'm not even walking in the principles and the purpose of those things that were listed here. And you can't feel any kind of way when a woman is like, nah, I don't want to rock with you. Because the woman gets one choice. You may be plural and you may get with a woman and be like, it's okay, but I'm gonna get another one. It's okay, I'm gonna get another one. You might be able to, she can't do that. You know, so you can never resent a woman for being picky. And I've heard many guys do that before. Like, you know, now you bitter and angry and you gonna die alone. You gonna relax, bro. Relax. You know, she has one choice. And if she has to wait for that choice, then so be it. You know, you don't know her situation. You don't know the vision the Most High has given her. Now, yes, are there foolish women out here? Yes, there's too many of them. They're like cockroaches. They're all over the damn place. You got a lot of old behind women with these unrealistic expectations and they're not even realistic about themselves. They're not realistic about what they can pull. About what they can, you know, they're not even realistic about their level of attractiveness, just to be honest. They ain't realistic about nothing, you know, but they are real. I want a man like this, and he got to be this tall. He got to make this much money, and his penis got to be this big. You got to have this kind of swag. And then you look at her, and she got nothing. She got nothing. Maybe she might have a little chunky booty or something, or she might have some boobs or something, maybe, you know, but maybe not. She might not have nothing, but she has this stupid list. You know, she shouldn't be allowed to pick for herself, because that's probably the reason she's single now, because she's been picking for herself too much and she's been picked over at this point. And you ever go to the supermarket and somebody's in the produce section and you want to get yourself some plums or some apples, and somebody's standing there picking over the fruit, and then they drop one on the floor and they put it back? What do? I know what you do because I know what I do. Well, no plums today. No apples today. That's that. I'm gonna go get me some oranges, something with some skin on it. But I don't know where you put that one back, and you done touched it all. I'm good. Nobody really wants something that's been picked all over. No one's really that interested in something that's been picked all over, unless you have a spirit like Rahab. Unless you have a Rahab spirit, and you can humble yourself, and you can serve in a way like Rahab served. And Rahab was prostitute, you see. But nobody wants anything that's picked over. And a lot of times through your foolish choices, because you did not court, you did not do what you were supposed to do, you've been picked over. And you come and you bring this bruised up, picked over, bitten into fruit to somebody, and then you come with a list of demands. They're going to let you just go off into the sunset and wither. Rivka was young, beautiful, and virginal. And she had her father and her mother at home. And even when they was like, all right, come on, we talk about hasten. Remember, her mother and her auntie said, let her stay with us for 10 days. And then she will come to you and your master. Now she ain't running down the street. Man, chill out. You got her. You got the woman. But let her stay with us for 10 days. You see, give us some time with her so we can also prepare her for where she's going, and also recognizing like she's now about to be someone else's. She's no longer going to be her father's responsibility, no longer any of that, but she's about to be someone else's, you see. And that's an important thing that you keep in mind when you're courting. Can I be this person's? Can I remove, like I'm uncleaving myself, I'm separating myself from my current home and household and becoming one flesh with this person? Can I do that? Can I be a part of this man's mission? Do I look at this woman and say, this is somebody that I want to take care of? This is somebody that I trust that their vows and the promises that they make won't destroy my home. This is someone I want to take care of, somebody that I want to cover and that I want to bring forth my generations. You see, that's so important when you start looking at the dynamics of family and what you're looking to receive. And I know, again, we're building up the talks around plurality, but let me say something to you, man. Men and women, your relationship is always plural. Always. It's always plural. I shared this story once, I think. I remember one time I was under the weather and I was in the house with my consort, and my mother stopped by the house. And I was hungry. And my consort was making some barley and turnip soup for me. And I really didn't want that. I wanted food. I was hungry. So my mother comes by the house and she was like, oh, what you cooking? And she was like, yeah, I know. She's like, how you doing, son? I was like, yeah, I'm under the weather. She's like, oh, yeah, I heard you under the weather. I came by to check on you. And so she goes into the kitchen. Now I'm laying on the sofa in the living room so I can hear them in the kitchen. And she's like, oh, what you making? And she was like, oh, it's barley and turnip soup. And my mother was like, huh? I remember her saying, huh? She said, what else? No, she said, what you making with it? She said, that's it. And she was like, no, you can't give him that. No. She said, listen, and I remember this example. She said, you and I, we're like Volkswagen Beetles. My son is like a tank. You got to feed him. That's a big man. You got to feed. That's not enough food. And it wasn't. It wasn't. But I was going to take it and just be sitting there annoyed and try to get myself to go back to sleep. I needed food. Right? So she was like, yeah, you need something with more substance in there. See, that's a form of plurality. Because I have to have enough love in my heart for my mother and my queen. You see, and my queen and my mother both have to understand that they serve distinct roles in my life. They both care about me. My queen will bring forth my children and bring forth my next generation. And I have a love for her in a way like that. We have that intimate love. I can't have sex with my mother. Okay. Can't have sex with my mother, but I have a deep love for her and she has love for me. So that I have two women in my life, two very important women in my life who I would kill for. You see, there's a plurality there. So even when you're thinking about courting, you have to think about these sort of dynamics. You know, as a woman, you got to look at the mother-in-law. Can I share this man with this woman? You know, you think about things like that. You think about, because with the woman coming into the man, she's going to cut from her father. You now her responsibility. So you don't have the same sort of energy that's there. But a mother, she's going to validate herself as a queen through you until you have some children. That's why she'll be stressing. When am I going to get some grandchildren? Because that's her way of validation, of showing I still have something to pour in. But she also sees that woman as a daughter. It's a very interesting, intricate sort of relationship there, you know. But there's always plurality. You always going to share that man with another woman. You're always going to share that man with another woman, you know. So that is what I wanted to share on this Sabbath. I see there's a lot in the chat, a lot, and you know, I'm not really going to answer any questions. Really, I'm gonna read them maybe, but I ain't gonna answer them. If I could find them, I saw some pop up. Zach says, I'm wondering if that is in relationship to when some old folks would ask, who are their people? When one would say they're talking to someone. Absolutely. You have to ask who their people are, because if my son comes home and says, Baba, I met this girl that was just like every other day. I met this girl and she did that. Yeah. Who's a pops? Oh, him? Oh, man, he's a simp. So I already know she's a Jezebel, because I know the father's a simp. You know, oh, if pops is a simp, I know the mom's is masculine. She's a masculine bulldog. That girl ain't about nothing, man. I already know where this is going, because Jezebels create Jezebels. Ahabs create Jezebel daughters, right? So, yeah, you got to ask those questions from the rip to see what it is, or someone may have mental issues, the different kind of things that you may have to prepare for, you know. So, yeah. Safta Ahava says, having family, the people who really know you, they find you a mate, makes a lot of sense. They see things you don't. Right. If your family is in your culture, see, that's the important thing to recognize here. Like, when I was in that land, we're all practicing the same culture. Avram is said, go, like, this is my servant. Eleazar was his servant. So that means that the God or the Yah of Avram or Abraham was also the Yah of his servant. So he knows, you know, the mission. you know what we're here doing. You know what the prophecy is that was given to me. So that's an important thing. I can't say that I would just go to any of the men in my family and be like, find me a woman. Hell no. I no. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to say it like that, but my mind started going to what that would look like. Nah. 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 Mm-mm. I remember my grand aunt, although this might not have been that bad. I was standing next to one of my cousins and she kept saying, they look so good together. They look so good together. They both, oh, he's so handsome and she's so pretty. They make a good couple. And my other cousin was like, they cousins. And she was like, I know, but still though. And I was like, yeah, you know. But I'm not really opposed to that, to be honest with you. You know, I mean, it got to be a little distant, don't too close in the cousin line. But yeah, I'm not actually opposed to that. But we got to be of the same culture. Zach said, this alone will make one think twice about giving up when they don't see eye to eye in a marriage. We work for this. Menelek says, does this process vary from region to region? How the Infinity says, my responsibility to my partner is my obligation to her community, and therefore our estate. She is the conception to my governance of I and I. El Karar says, is there a proxy for your father if he's transitioned? Baruch says, I have many personal articles, lessons, and artifacts from my father that I still appreciate. Looking at that that he gave me from Nigeria. Excuse me. Um, Eddie Moon says, Chief, what if the woman is affluent and has her own home? Which home does she come to? And what if she doesn't want to leave her home? I don't even want to, like I said, I wasn't going to answer them, but I got to answer this one. That she's not your woman, or she's a concubine. This is where you get. This is where you go into concubine territory. I was talking about courting for a wife. Concubines, you don't really need to do a courtship. But if a woman says, "Well, I make my own bread and I buy my own clothes, just let me be with you to take away my reproach," okay, you could be a concubine. I have many concubines. So the situation may be that, but if she don't want to leave her home and she's like, I got my money, first of all, when you're saying his and her, like anything, if I get with a woman and she's truly my wife, all that's mine anyway. Think about in Islam, when Khadijah, conjoined herself with Muhammad, like she was already wealthy. She was already an entrepreneur, but that became Muhammad's. You know what I'm saying? So it's the same thing. Like, if I get with a woman and she's like, well, I got this money over here, this is mine, but we can shit. For me, I wouldn't even want you as a concubine, to be honest with you, but that's concubine territory. I know I wasn't going to answer any questions, but I couldn't let that one sit out there. That one was pretty bad. All right. So with that being said, we're going to close out 2:30. We have a follow-up segment from the House of Yuya on IG, House of Yuya, IG, House of Yuya. Eventually, they're going to be doing their lives on YouTube as well, but we need to get the subscriptions up on YouTube. So if you're not subscribed to the House of Yuya, which is, my name is Yuya, YouTube channel, please make sure you subscribe to it. So we can actually, the more subscribers you have on YouTube, the more functionality it gives you. And because it's a new channel, there's hardly any subscribers, so it's not all the functionality we would like to be able to do live segments and stuff like that. So, but at 2:30, excuse me, they will be on Instagram. And any thoughts or whatever you can bring there to Instagram, and you can also join the conversation, which is always cool. Join the conversation, ask things. This is important too for you women who sit on the sidelines a lot. Like I said, women can put in courtship papers too, but if you're just the type of person that's always sitting on the sidelines watching, you're not going to get anything. You got to jump into the mix, man. You got to, grab your ovaries and jump in the mix and ask questions, assert. Because the same thing with some of you brothers, man. Like, a lot of brothers tell me they want women. Oh, we want wives. And I'll say things like, yo, when I'm doing a live, why don't you jump in? Yeah, I'll just be watching. You a beta. You're a beta. Like, why would a woman want you? You're not even, you scared to even put your opinion forth because there's somebody in the room who may know more than you. Who would want that? And if you do end up with somebody, what kind of woman wants to be with somebody like that? So for men, man, you got to let your works be shown. If you're doing something that is in alignment that shows you are a husband, then, don't hide it. You know what I mean? Now, yeah, people fake, but I am having more and more faith daily in the ability of women to see through nonsense. I used to not have a lot of faith in that. And maybe it's because I'm getting older and the women around me are getting older. But a lot of times, like, I'll see somebody like, he ain't really on it like that. And a woman will be like, something about him he's not authentic. Like, they be picking up on it too. And maybe that's why you want to stay in the background. You know what I mean? But if you campaigning, man, let your voice be heard, and don't be a goofball all the time. Like I keep telling you guys, man, like sometimes y'all ain't got nothing to say unless you joking in the comment section. Nobody wants to marry a clown. We go to the circus to watch the clown and we come back home. Yeah, humor and I crack jokes. Humor is important inside of a household, but also let's see your intellect so we can determine if this intellectual compatibility. But if the only time you light up is when I'm cracking jokes, then nobody's going to want you. All right. So with that, 2:30 will be on Instagram. I'll be over there, and your comments or whatever, or your contribution, definitely bring it there. And be sure that you subscribe to the House of Yuya channel as well. And for people who've been asking me about the retreat, you can go find information on the retreat on the anulifeglobal.org website. Please do it that way, because some of you have inboxed me retreat information. I actually don't have it. So I am not the organizer of the retreat. I picked the like, we're gonna do it here, we're gonna do it like this, and the activities and stuff. But like the particulars, that's not really my area, and I don't want it to be my area. I'm too busy chiefing. So I would definitely say go to the website. You see right there. There's the retreat email, or you can go to anulifeglobal.org/retreats, or email organizer@anulifeglobal.org. It does not come to me. I know y'all think that I'm saying we, but I'm the one behind answering everything. I promise you I'm not. I promise you, you haven't cracked the code. So that's the best thing for you to do. Those of you who've been asking me about the retreat and stuff like that. All right, with that, I'll see you in 30 minutes over on IG, and be sure to subscribe to House of Yuya as well as this channel as well. We're trying to get our numbers up here so we could do more things on this channel as well. All right. Until then, shalom.
Giving honor to the Most High, creator of all worlds, seen and unseen. We stand before you humbly, with hearts ready to receive your infilling of wisdom and spirit. We give honor to our ancestors, on whose shoulders we stand. Without those you designated to come before us, we would not know who you are today. We thank you for the healing balm that you send through our minds, bodies, and spirits. We thank you for giving us a name, giving us a culture, being our watcher and protector. Originator, you are the first cause of all existence. You are the banner of truth that we lift whenever deceivers seek to blind our vision and put us to sleep. Where would we be without the lessons and deep wisdom you have given us to secure a dignified life for ourselves? In times of confusion, we rely on your peace, which surpasses all understanding. You are an L of order. We stand on the promise that you will remove chaos from our lives if we walk in the divine way you have laid before us. We rest with the knowing that you are able and great. Your plans are always the best plans. Our power comes from you. Our light comes from you. Our destiny comes from you. Thank you for all of the graces you continue to bestow on us. Thank you, Most High. Thank you, Father Knowledge. Thank you, Mother Wisdom. Thank you, Messiah, for the words of power. Selah.